Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for convening this hearing. Thank you for each of the witnesses for coming. You know, this is a time when our country is torn apart, is filled with anger, is filled with rage, is filled with division. And it is my hope that through this, we can find ways to come together on shared principles. Here's one proposition I believe everyone in this hearing room agrees with. What happened to George Floyd was horrific. It was unconscionable. It was clearly a grotesque abuse of police power, and the officers that carried it out are rightly being prosecuted. To the best of my knowledge, every witness here today agrees with those statements, and every senator on this committee agrees with those statements. I think all of us, regardless of party, should demand justice and should demand that the law be applied fairly, regardless of race. That's a promise that our country was founded aspiring to, and it's a promise that we have had a deeply troubled history working to achieve. I also think it is true that anytime you have government power, there's a risk of abuse. And we have a responsibility to protect individual rights against the abuse of governmental authority. At the same time, I think some of the rhetoric that has been used in the wake of Mr. Floyd's killing has been inaccurate and harmful. A great many of our colleagues use the phrase systemic racism to suggest that the entire criminal justice system is imbued with racism. I don't believe that's accurate. Some of our colleagues have said, and this was a quote from earlier in the hearing, nothing has changed from the days Dr. King stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. I think that proposition is demonstrably false. A great deal has changed since then. Our country has made a journey. As my friend Senator Booker said, Dr. King pointed to the arc of history bending towards justice. We have traveled along that arc. We no longer have Jim Crow laws. We no longer have segregated schools. We no longer have open bigotry that was so pervasive just a generation ago in our country. And I think for young people to say nothing has changed gives them a false and inaccurate picture of this country. When you point to systemic racism, something our Democratic colleagues often point to as the cause of this, it is worth noting in Minneapolis, the police chief is a Democrat. The mayor is an elected Democrat. Every member of the city council is an elected Democrat. The attorney general is an elected Democrat. Both senators are elected Democrats. Now, I don't for a moment believe that every one of those elected officials is part of systemic racism and oppression. And to tell the American citizens that's what's going on is misleading them, and it's harmful. Are there bigots? Yes. Are there people who violate the law? Yes. And when they do so, they should be prosecuted just like the officers who killed Mr. Floyd are prosecuted. But to impugn the integrity of everyone working in law enforcement is a disservice to this nation. And I want to point out in particular, there's been a lot of discussion about police officers and police forces, and defunding the police and abolishing the police has become a new political cause célèbre. I would like to point this committee to an article that came out just this month, June of 2020. It is entitled Policing the Police: The Impact of Pattern or Practice Investigations on Crime. With the chairman's permission, I'd like to enter this article into the record. It is by two economists at Harvard University, hardly a right-wing bastion. Here's what they concluded. It's a word of caution because there's a lot of discussion from our Democratic friends saying we need more Department of Justice pattern or practice investigations into police departments. That has become one of the frequent refrains. Let me just read from the conclusions of this study, because if we care about saving people's lives, the conclusions of this study should give us real cause for concern. Here's what the study concluded. They examined all of the police departments in which pattern or practice investigations had been launched, and they found a real difference for those investigations where there was not what they called a viral incidence of violence on a civilian. They found that did not increase crime, but here's what they found. All of the investigations that were preceded by viral incidents of deadly force have led to a large and statistically significant increase in homicide and total crimes, and here's their estimate in particular. We estimate that these investigations caused almost 900 excess homicides and almost 34,000 excess felonies. So if the members of this committee agree that Black Lives Matter, demonizing the police, causing them to pull back from protecting people's lives, will predictably cause more black lives to be taken. And so I urge that we proceed with caution, with a commitment to justice and a commitment to truth.